the walkthrough of how to quantify sort of this a little bit of theory of quantification, and then Franco, perhaps you could share screen when it's time to showcase how to actually quantify, because you are assigned a quantifier and I am not for Giveth.
Yeah, of course.
So I'll see. Just need to. Just need one more minute to find my documents, etc. So basically, I think we should spend the most of the time actually looking at the real quantification screen, but I'll share this document to begin with. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong document. It's the praising has already happened. I was about to share the writing excellent, how to write excellent praise, but maybe it's a good topic to discuss anyway around. Sorry for coming a little bit ill prepared. Just jumped from another call. So quantifying praise goes hand in hand. Quantifying praise in a good way, of course, goes hand in hand with writing excellent praise. Or rather, writing excellent praise is a requirement to do good quantification work. And once you get started quantifying, you will very soon find out, because if a praise giver has left out valuable context, you will find yourself in a difficult position of not knowing, what is this all about, this praise? What does it describe? What kind of contribution in which context? And it will be difficult for you to assign a good score to it. So maybe I'm showing this screen, this writing excellent praise, which is in the meeting agenda, and I think we posted the link to that before, and you can find all these links on givepraise.xyz. All the documentation on best practices and so on. And my hopes are that Franco, you and also all the quantifiers, you will be sort of advocates for praising within Giveth. So while quantifying, if you come across praise that you feel like this, someone has praised it sounds like a significant contribution, but it's really difficult to find out because it's really missing some important context. Be sure to sort of alert that person or to write in the praise channel or post this link about writing excellent praise again, and reminding people that you need to describe really the person being praised, the contribution they made, and also try to describe the impact of that praise, because then it gives you a good chance of actually quantifying it. But please have a look at this guide again, writing excellent praise. Then you know how you can guide other community members. And there's also so maybe that's all I need to share to begin with, and I would propose that Franco, you share screen instead, and I can talk you through the different parts of the quantification UI.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm at the dashboard right now.
Yes. So Franco, in this case, has been assigned as quantifier for this November, the first 2 weeks, and we intentionally chose to make a short period, this first quantification period, because we want the quantification to be smooth, and we want to have some time left to discuss the quantifications and so on. So see this as a practice run, but of course the quantification is real. But the hopes are that we will be able to do the quantification during this session, and in the end we can also discuss any things that have come up, any problems and so on. So when clicking on the link on the first page, or you can also click on the periods page to the left there in the left menu, Franco.
Sorry, yeah, Christopher. I was like, everybody is okay with the dashboard. Did everybody get the access to the dashboard, or anyone has a question on how to get into this screen? All good, perfect. So sorry, which one?
Yeah, you being quantifiers means that you have at least activated your accounts. If you click on the periods tab there, there at the top of the screen, it says your quantification is open. You can perform quantification, and it lists the periods you have been assigned to. And in theory, you could be assigned as a quantifier to several periods at the same time. But in this case, it's just this November period. So if you click on that, and that page will list all the praise receivers that you have been assigned to quantify. And one important thing here to keep in mind is that you will always be assigned all praise for one particular receiver and that period. So if you have been assigned the praise of Monique, what you will see when you click on Monique is all the praise that Monique has received during that period. And that is really important, because it is a prerequisite for you to be able to identify duplicates. And identifying duplicates is a significant part of the quantification job, because we don't want praise to degenerate into a popularity contest, meaning that if you get 10 people to praise one contribution, you get 10 times the reward. So it's the contributions that count, not the number of praising the same contribution. So it's a really important thing for contributors, quantifiers to do, is to identify these duplicates. So maybe that is something we can do right away as the first thing. What you see on the screen, or let's start with the quantifications first. You see from top to the bottom the oldest to the newest praise, and to quantify a praise, you just pull the slider to the right of the praise. And the slider, there's a sliding scale. It's a Fibonacci sequence, so it's a logarithmic scale of scores you assign to the praise, where 1 being the lowest and 144 being the highest. And this is important to keep in the back of your head, that the score you are giving, you are assessing the size and the impact of the quantification of the contribution being made. So where 1, of course, is the smallest possible contribution with the smallest possible impact you can make on the community. It's quite easy to identify what a 1 might be. It could be a retweeting or showing up to the community meeting and not saying anything, but just being there. And that is, just being there is the smallest thing you can do, most likely. And 144 is the biggest possible contribution you can make to the community. And it's really important. There is a fair amount of distance between 1 and 144, so that actually the biggest possible contribution is quite much larger than the smallest one. If we were to have a scale from 1 to 10, it wouldn't be as good. Then showing up to 10 meetings would be the same thing as doing the largest possible contribution. So you look through this list from top to bottom, and you assign scores for each praise based on the size of the impact and the size of the importance of the contribution. Then you will come across duplicate praise, and duplicate praise are praise that are referring to the same contribution. So it's not praise that are referring to a similar contribution made in another week. It's the praise that are referring to the same contribution, like showing up to the same community meeting. So those you have some gray lines on the quantification interface horizontal lines, and those signify weekly dividers. And we were asked by the TEC to add those because the quantifiers found it difficult to sort of assess if is this a praise referring to a quantification in which week? Is it a duplicate, or is it a new praise for joining the same community call but the week after? So the cultural practice within the CEC became that we identify duplicates within 1 week. Sort of. If there's a praise coming in later than 1 week later, then maybe it should be viewed as a separate contribution or something like that. But mostly within 1 week, we try to identify the duplicates. So let's see if you find any duplicates. Do we have any?
I have this one here, since it was the same week. As you can see, the first one here that says nice donation flow on IO, tested and loved the flow donating. So, and then I found this one that was great job on IO and Trace. So I kind of like made a duplicate because it was the same week.
So to begin with, we can show you how to remove a duplicate marker. If you have marked the praise as duplicate and you want to change your mind, you just click the little X next to duplicate. Right there, both. And now this praise is a regular praise again. But let's say, okay, we say that you believe this to be a duplicate praise. So you have two options. Either you check, put a check mark next to the, you can check both of them. And then you press the duplicate mark as duplicates up there. And there says, so this is how it works. When you mark several praise and say that these are duplicates, then one of the praise, and it doesn't matter really which one of them, will have the original score, the full score that you give, and the other praise, they will have 10% in our case, and this is a setting, but we chose the setting 10%. So the because it's a signal, it's not worthless. The signal of actually many people praising the same contribution, it should have some value. So if you give this a praise a score of, now you have given it a score of something 40, 50.
13, I think.
Yeah, 13. Cool. And you press mark as duplicate. That means that the original praise will get the full score of 13. And as you can see, the duplicate praise get a duplicate score of 1.3, which is 10% of the original.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was listening, but I don't see where the button is to make it duplicate. I went to go try it on mine, but then I was like, wait, where is it? Can you
it's at the top. So those buttons at the top of the list are all meaning actions that you can perform on more than one praise at a time. So you also, and then the next thing we can have a look at is dismiss. So dismissing a praise means the information contained in the praise is not praise, for instance. This is null and void. This doesn't mean anything, or it's an empty praise, or it's completely out of context for what Giveth does. It's outside of the scope of our community or whatever. So then you can mark it, then you can dismiss it. And by in the same way, you put a check mark next to the praise you want to dismiss, and you click the dismiss button at the top of the screen. You can click that, dismiss one praise, and you will see you can remove it later. So you go ahead and click dismiss. It gets a strike through, so you cannot miss it. If you change your mind, you just delete that little label next to the text, right, like that. And then the third, like multi-praise feature there is that you can quantify more than one praise. So for instance, praise this and that person for showing up to the community meeting, something like that, or resharing a tweet. Often that kind of praise comes up more than once during a period. So you can just tick all those, all the showing up to the community meeting, and then you push the quantify many button there, and you give that a score. Quantify selected 5 praise items, and they will get the same. When you press quantify, those praise will get the same score. So that is just a feature to help you speed up the quantification process, basically. And once you are done and have quantified all praise for a receiver, you will see a small green check mark at the top of the page. I do believe so. Maybe no, I haven't.
Wait.
Yeah. Yeah. So done. And moving back to the previous page, the goal, of course, is to have all green check marks next to all the praise, and that means you're done with the task of quantification. And maybe I'll stop here, and then we can do quantifications together, and you just shoot me any questions you like during the process. Yeah, I guess you will need like 15 to 20 minutes to finish all of them. It's not a large amount.
I have questions already. I mean, like, because I looked at this before, it's so hard for me to quantify praise that's like being an amazing team member. And it's like, I'm looking at like Mohammed's praise. There are like so many praises. Everybody's saying he's an amazing team member. And it's like, are they duplicates? Or is like Mohammed touching many people's lives like something to be praised? And like, what should be a score for that? It's like, so it's like, you know, maybe not excellent praise. And it's very hard for me to quantify. And I love your suggestion.
It is hard to quantify because a praise like that, praising someone for just being a great person, that does not include what contribution they actually made to the community. Like being a great person is not a contribution in itself to the community, and it doesn't describe the impact of how Mo was a great person, how that actually affected your community. So no, that is a bad. It's a difficult praise to quantify, and over time I've seen what has happened in Mitch, as you can imagine, being a sharpshooter and straight talker, is like too little context, low score. Simple as that. And that is one way of doing it, and I believe that might be the correct way, because there's no way of knowing what being a good person might have meant in this context unless you have some additional context. But the beauty with praise, when more than one quantify praise, is that all of a sudden then someone in the quantifier team actually has some context, some valid context of actually knowing when that praise was sent and in which context, and knows what was the hidden thing happening behind the scenes there. And they will add a little bit more, a little bit higher score, so then the average will push up and become a little higher. So one might say that this is unfair, or you can say that this is completely fair, because everything is random and this is a practice, this is a ritual. So we believe that over time it will be fair, given that we have a large enough quantifier pool, and that people are continuously praising and doing the best work at quantifying.
Yeah, okay, agreed. And also the other thing that I'm struggling with is just like basically not having clear metrics for like what should be what score and what should be what other score.
Yeah.
And something I think that would be really helpful is maybe if you just quantified praise and explained why you're scoring things certain ways, then I could start to understand like maybe what's it. If no, you can't show us anything, you're like just shaking your head. I'm not gonna do that, Laura. But it's like I have no context. It's like then I'm just like I give up.
No, I say that is I believe it's really important that this is not quantification is not a top-down thing.
Yes, but you still have to have a legend of those numbers. I mean, we need a legend. We
don't have to have one from the beginning. We have to, a legend has to emerge over time. But it's up to you as quantifiers to come up with that.
Yes, but if you already have chosen the metric for the span, the range of numbers, what is that based on? That itself is already top down to some regard, that you've chosen this algorithm for what the choices are.
I agree, and I can just say that it would be nice if we can somehow maybe get on I mean, it's very subjective. It feels very subjective, right? So
Christopher, when we did at the TEC quantifying, I remember it was you always did it within a pair, so you could chat about it. and be on the same page.
Way back. So I'd say that this meeting is the perfect time to discuss this. I do think it's important that you as a community form the practices around praise. I cannot deliver you a list that like you should quantify like this because it's up to you basically. But maybe you would like to have some guidelines, and then start the conversation during this call where you all quantify together and start building that list.
Yeah, I just want to chime in here just a bit from having experience years ago when we did this with Giveth, and each circle leader had to go in and score themselves, and it is subjective, and it is important that if each of us see something from the beginning and we're being given that to operate with, it really limits us. And by having each of us really consider how to do this ourselves, and then over time see how we each scored different things and consult with each other, then we can actually develop something. But I do believe it's important that we each have the freedom to choose our scale from the beginning rather than be limited by the metrics up front.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess what I'm pointing out is we are given a scale. They're already. So when I did it in the TEC, there was no numbers pre-established.
Yeah. But the scale that doesn't have any context. So the scale only represents the smallest country. So this we can say that the smallest contribution that you can imagine exists, and the largest contribution you can imagine also exists. This we can say without doubt, and the scale only represents that. So is it the smallest? Is it the largest? Or is it somewhere in between? And where you place a certain contribution is up to you. It's really important to allow for this subjectivity to exist, because we want this to be an emergent process where maybe one individual think it's really important to show up to community meetings, and another person thinks it is really important to do another thing. So it's not necessarily there won't be a list like this is what we as a community believe is important. It is a subjective process.
It's also in order to balance it. It's also important in order to balance the different perspectives of different team members. Like Chris gave as an example before, Mitch is pretty strict. Mitch is going to look at things and say, that doesn't count at all, or that's a 1. Some of us are going to actually see that there is some value to things from a softer skill perspective. And by having different people rank these things slightly differently, that's what actually gives us something we can feel good about.
I see it a bit like when you do a survey and you've got a scale, say, rate this question, this situation from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And when we answer those questions, we are able in ourselves to understand, well, this meant a lot to me, or this meant little to me, or this was somewhere in between. And this is similar. And if you think about it, when we do, we gather information in a survey, at the end, we will see where all these scores accumulate together somewhere in the middle and the sort of outliers. And I think from doing a couple of sessions like this, we'll begin to get a picture of how the community values certain situations. That's how I see it anyway.
Great input. It's important to have the post-quant analysis session for the first few rounds. Most likely there will be a decent attendance to those sessions. Then over time, it feels like the culture maybe is setting, and then it will be more and more difficult to get people to show up to the cultural analysis sessions because it's like similar topics that you cover every time. But it's really important to have them in the beginning to discuss these things. Can I just ask you, is there someone who has not been able to access the dashboard and who has not begun quantifying? Good.
I'll clarify that I have access to the dashboard, but I'm reading through and looking at things and engaging in the conversation and not quantifying yet.
Sorry, Christopher, I have a question about like the process. You mentioned that we have a a cultural analysis session after the period ends? Like, what's the time frame there? Like, once, like, for example, like we can finish quantifying this maybe next week because this one's a short one and we have a lot of quantifiers assigned to this period. And then once we finish, like how long after should we like schedule this analysis session?
Rachel, maybe you have. I tend to forget how these because I'm not a quantifier over at the TEC. I know they have a good rhythm there with the quantification periods opening at a certain day and closing at a certain day, and then I believe the whole process takes like 2 weeks or something. Rachel, do you have the schedule?
Yeah, it takes about a week. So the period is open, and then quantifiers have about 5 days to quantify. And then on the 6th day, they have the post quantification. And if there's any issues, then they will have to postpone it to the following day for the rewards team to handle the issues. But generally, it takes about a week to open and close a period if everything goes smoothly.
And on what day do they start?
I think on a Monday. They open the period on a Monday and close it on a Friday. And then the following Monday, they have the post-quant session. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing that's coming up for me as I look at the slider scale, there's no way for me to enter a number. Am I missing that? Because the slider scale like goes, there's only at the end is 144. But then right before that is 89. Am I missing something here? How do I give somebody 101?
You don't. So that is the purpose with that scale, the Fibonacci sequence, is that I think that it is. I forgot the mathematics behind the Fibonacci sequence, but the theory behind it is that it should be quite a significant step between each numbers, because it's more easily to. So this is made to simplify for quantifiers. Like GitHub uses the same system when you estimate the size of the amount of work needed to complete an issue. And the theory is that it's choosing between a 1 and a 2 is really simple. You know, the 2 is double the size of 1. It's simple. But how would you choose between 15 and 16 when giving a score? What's the difference? So there's a big jump between 89 and 144. I know, and that is intentional.
Okay, I understand. So it's a scale, but each of them is worth increasingly more. Got it.
Hey, Christopher, I'd like to put as an example the one I have on my screen here right now. The one that says, for example, I marked to just duplicate the one that says returning from vacation. Like, how should we consider this? Like, I gave it like a slow score because it's kind of like a like normal action. You like go to vacation and then you come back. So like, is this okay, or like should we like dismiss it? Like, will this like depend on the person, on the quantifier, on the person who's quantifying, or
yes? Do you as a contributor to Giveth believe that it's important to come back from vacation? Is that an important contribution to the community?
I mean, yes, it's important to come back. Like, it's not nice to go on vacations and never come back, but yeah, I guess like it's normal though. Like, it's not like I think it's important, and like it's always nice when someone's like away for a long time. For them to come back, it's always like, yeah, like welcome back. But like it's a happy moment. So like I just gave it like a small score.
So usually the score of 1 is you can readily use that for everything that is so something on the verge of being something that you should dismiss. But at the same time, apparently there 5 different people have wanted to highlight this person coming back. So it's they were happy, and then it was maybe it should be rewarded somehow.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, like number one, like attending the meetings, coming
Yeah.
back. Hey, I have a question. So I'm seeing in the next week, I'm seeing that there is a duplicate, right? So somebody praised somebody for contribution from the next week. I know you mentioned that normally we base it on a week basis, but I'm clearly seeing now that's obviously identical one. So
Then I'd say mark it as a duplicate, and this weak theory also builds on not theory but practice builds on that there's always a cutoff, and we have periods. The periods begin and end, and it's as plausible as it is that you now saw that there was one contribution in week 1 and the praise for the same contribution in week 2. That could have happened. That one contribution was praised in week 2, and the duplicate was being praised in the next period. And if it was praised during the next period, you wouldn't have been able to identify it as a duplicate because it would have been assigned to a different quantifier and so on. So,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I also have a question. Is each piece of praise only quantified by one person, or is there multiple people quantifying each piece of praise?
3 quantifiers per praise.
Okay, cool.
So the final score becomes it's a straight calculation. So it's the average of the 3 scores, where the dismiss counts as 0, and not praising at all and not quantifying at all also doesn't count as 0. If you don't quantify at all, that is not included in the average. So then that number is removed, or that not number.
And so when you're finished and it says done, you just leave it. And I think Ashley was saying, or I forget who was saying, it's like you can still change it. There's no actual, so it's open for a little while.
Yes. So that will be up to Franco to communicate how long when does quantification start and when does it end, and you can change the scoring up until the period is closed. So that is yeah.
Great, thank you, Christopher. It's really beautiful, by the way. From when I was doing it at the TEC, and it was like on an Excel spreadsheet, and you just put in all the numbers, old-fashioned.
Yeah, it's a little bit more polished now.
Yeah, well done. It's lovely.
All right, so I have a question. Suppose I find 3 items that are duplicates. I mark those 3 as duplicates. And then as I'm reading them, I realize I have another duplicate. It's not very intuitive how to add another duplicate. Like if I just tried to do it and I went with the very first one and then another one.
So there is a button. There's a button to the right of praise. So the method I described was that you check. Use the check mark, and but you can also click on that little duplicate button that shows up to the right of each praise item, and so if you identify a 4th one when you have already marked 3, then you can click on that little button, and then you enter the little ID number next to each praise to find the original. That was the best way we came up with. When you have a long list of items, you have to find a way to reference them. So that 4-letter hashtag number.
Got it. Thank you very much.
What did we say about self-praise? Let me judge the relevancy here.
I think it's allowed to self-praise. We decided
Yeah,
it was
and I think
allowed,
it's
right?
actually encouraged.
All right. Good self-praise, Donnie.
Hey, you know what? You got to ring your own bells.
Me? I never self-praise. I should, yeah. Ah, that's what he meant.
If you feel like you're being recognized for things adequately, it's great. But if you're doing things that aren't really visible by others, and you need it, you need to raise that. Yeah.
Sure, it's fine.
Yeah, the difficulty with self-praise would be where when do you stop, or how often do you self-praise? If you have a busy day, you could easily identify. I've done then 25 different contributions during today. Do I praise myself for everything? And then that would turn praise basically into a time reporting system. And
No, but you could also include like the people who helped you do the task as well, and rope other people into the praise with you. It doesn't necessarily have to just be for something that you did, because a lot of times you're collaborating with others.
Hey, Christopher, I have a question about the roles in the dashboard. So, does everybody have access when they enter the period? Like, for example, here, everybody has the access to this, or it's only admins?
you as an admin can see everything all the time. Quantifiers and regular users cannot see the praise being the quantification scores while quantification is ongoing. So it's because we don't want the quantifiers to look at each other while you're quantifying. So once the period is closed, the quantification results is accessible to everyone.
Okay, and then should I give the admin role to, for example, Danny, who's going to be the cultural analyst, or is it not necessary? Or
yes, we can. Yeah, that is most likely a good idea, because you need to have the administrative role to be able to export data from the system. So when you go into a period, you see the closed period. There will be the export button or the export drop down, and that only shows to admins.
okay, perfect.
I'm sorry, I forgot how to remove the duplicate praise. I marked something as duplicate.
There's a little label in the praise description with a small X in it. So you just click on that little X, and the duplicate will go away.
Ah, yes, it. Thank you.
All right, this is probably a very small thing, but when you don't have many praises in the listing and I go to mark it as a duplicate, the window that pops up, since I can't move it, I can't actually see what that is. So it's not a big deal. Obviously, I can just close it and go back and look and do it again. But when you're trying to stay on top of this, it's a little tricky to
Yeah. So sorry,
Well,
describe. Can you describe that again? What happens and how?
Yeah, so if there's only like 3 praises for a person, I guess I can just go back and use the other duplicate. But as I'm going through, I'm using the duplicate button on the right and typing in that little number. And I can't actually read the number once I click that button. It covers it up. Maybe that's just my screen. Yours is showing. Interesting.
Yeah, I think I would need to see your screen to actually understand how it's. But that sounds like something we would like to fix.
Yeah.
Could you share your screen?
Sure.
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. What I normally do is I just copy the IDs myself. I just copy and paste them. Yeah.
Share screen.
Hey, Christopher, I'm joining super late because, I did mine already. But some people are asking me like how to give proper context on like how much they should score stuff. And I know generally we say like, kind of the community needs to decide, every person needs to decide like what they value things, but like, do you have any things or insights that we've seen from doing it in other communities? I think that's where most people get stuck, even in the TEC I've seen.
Yeah, we had a discussion initially about the importance of letting it be a somewhat subjective process, but also that there could be definitely a value in community guidelines, and like this kind of call or the first few post quant analysis sessions most likely are the calls where these practices should be nailed down together. Like, what do we score a certain praise a certain way or certain contributions?
Would it be useful if I said a few things that I've noticed, at least from doing it in the TEC for the last year?
Sure.
So generally, it's like attending calls kind of like gets the bottom. Most people give it like a 1 because showing up to a call doesn't mean like you did anything. Usually giving talks at conferences or doing solidity work or like super in-demand, hard-to-find hard skills get like the top score, because there's an immense amount of effort or like it's a specialty thing. Usually like facilitating low context, like being an awesome teammate or being really organized gets like an 8, because it's like we don't really know what they were doing. And so it's like, if there's less context, it usually gets a lower score, and if it's got a very specific context, it could get like a higher score, is generally what I've seen. So really vague things, it's like we want to encourage people to give like better praise over time. So like if you give more detailed praise, then the person could give it a higher score, but if it's really vague, then generally it ends up being lower score. That's what I've seen.
I like it, and that's what we talked about actually, the importance of us as a quantifiers reminding how to write an excellent praise, right? And helping the community to build better practice around that. And also, I must chime in and just say that I really actually like the diversity of the subjectiveness of the whole action, because like I can use my own judgment and like judge from my own value perspective, but still one person that gets praised, that praise will pass through quantifiers, right? One praise will go through 3 people's judgment.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that way, it's really beautiful decentralization, and I love that the whole community gets to have the voice. And I get what you're saying. I agree that there are some basic guidelines that we can agree on. Like, yes, attending the meeting is the minimum contribution, right? But then it's fun actually to use your own judgment. That's what I guess that's the point that I wanted to make here.
And also imagine this, that you see less and less community engagement over time for some reason. And then you as a quantifier might come to the conclusion, like showing up to the weekly community meeting is at this time is one of the most important contributions you can make, because that will, keep the energy up in the community. So I will no longer score that as a 1. I will score that as a 13 or as a 21 or something, because, we really want to incentivize people I want to incentivize people to show up to these meetings, because I believe that to be important.
Just one last point before I let you continue is what I've noticed is that like things are really chaotic for at least like the first 6 rounds while people kind of get a bearing on what their own evaluation of thing is. But once we get to a point like where the T series a year later, we have lots and lots of data that we can actually go back and reference and start to like coalesce around like scoring guidelines. So it's chaotic at first, but then people figure things out after a few rounds.
How are we doing? How many of you are done, or how many? Yeah.
I'm almost done with mine.
I'm done.
Franco, you can look at the period page and reload that, and you click on the periods and there and the quantifiers. So there you can see who has work left to do. And it looks like most of who are actively quantifying are actually done with their quantifications. It's Nicola has a few items left only. So maybe we can take these last few minutes and does anyone want to share some conclusion or final questions? We have 5 minutes left.
I don't have any questions, but like I think it's just gonna be very interesting, like the post quantification like session. It's like that's the first one that is gonna happen. Like Mitch said, it's gonna be very chaotic, but that can also be fun. So I'm just like curious to see how this process develops. So, yeah.
And I'd suggest that for this first period, you will actually do a post-quant analysis while the quantification period is open. So that if someone was like, oh, I completely misunderstood something, they can actually go back and change things after that session, that you leave it open another day or two, because oftentimes there is someone that has sort of, for some weird reason, just given all top scores or something.
Yeah. I'll try and set that up for next week's time. I'll create a doodle and see if everybody can attend, and we can do a post quant like while the period is open. That's interesting.
So the amount of praise we have quantified now in I think we have been doing it for less than maximum 20 minutes, was like around 50 each, and I think we would like to assign, Mitch, is it 100 or 150? We have, what has been the good level?
150 is pretty easy. Like you can get it done in under an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm done. You can refresh. It should be there.
That's it. Everyone has completed. Great work, everyone. And
You've got some at the bottom here, like you've got a Almond, Ramin, Rochelle, Griff.
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, everyone that is here has completed.
Heather, oh, Heather.
I haven't. I've just
You
been
haven't?
listening.
Heather.
No, I've been eating breakfast. I've just been listening.
Do you understand this praise to qualify?
What?
It's okay.
Okay.
Come on, Hannah. I ate breakfast and quantified.
I'm not very good at multitasking. I'd rather just focus on it and do it right.
Well, I like to think I did. I did both right.
Good.
Okay, so I'll just tag everyone that hasn't completed this and try to like get them to do it by next week and before the post-quant session that we can also like schedule for next week. Everyone okay with that?
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Christopher.
Thank you, everyone.
Sounds good.
Bye. Thanks for explaining everything. Bye.
Bye.